Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for One Piece Season 6 on Netflix. And I overall enjoyed this season. Now, granted, I do have some issues that pop up in the whole Sky Island arc, but I overall enjoyed it and liked the kind of stories that we got. Kind of the focusing on dreams and how certain kind of dreams can come into conflict, like Luffy's and becoming the king of the pirates versus like Bellamy and his view on piracy and God Eneru on Sky Island and everything that he's trying to accomplish. So I did like seeing that and understanding how like, hey, some dreams are interesting and you can have people with you and it's working towards a common goal. Other dreams are just being dickholes and you have to kind of deal with those assholes. So, pretty much after the last season, we had this whole kind of ship fallen on the crew, and we find out that it's like a 200-year-old one, and that it is linked to like an island in the sky. We see that the log pose of Nami's is pointing to the sky. It's like, what the fuck? They also meet these kind of salvagers who are looking for shit under the sea as well. Mashura? I believe. Wrong one. This, like, monkey dude. And that whole kind of turtle thing was kind of nutty as well. But they decided to try and figure out this whole kind of thing going on. They kind of were in a little bit of a scuffle with the salvagers, but then they decide to make their way to Jaya to learn some more information about Sky Island. We also check in with Buggy, and they're just trying to figure out stuff that they're going to be doing to like go after Luffy. But then we see that Ace pops up as well, and is like, ah shit, because he's looking for Blackbeard, and they don't want to fuck with Ace because they don't want to fuck with Whitebeard. And we see him, and he is an interesting kind of character. Now, granted, that was more in the beginning of the season, so if I'm getting some kind of stuff out of tune, or there's some kind of important kind of stuff that'll come back in later, don't tell me exactly what it is, but let me know of like any kind of details that I kind of missed, because they did a lot of kind of stuff in here. But seeing him, seeing how big he is, Shanks actually sending thing to like talk and parlay with him. It's not Shanks, but he sent a dude, and the dude's like, no, if he's coming to talk to me. And we also get some kind of interesting kind of stuff going on with the world government as well. Learning more about these kind of like admirals and how their whole kind of thing kind of works. It's just mainly more of an introductory kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Not that they dive too deeply into it, because we see that like Whitebeard's fucking huge as shit. He's got like nurses kind of tending to him and giving him medicine and everything. Like, this dude doesn't fuck around. And of course the dude goes back, feels like he's kind of failed Shanks, but Shanks' like, nah, we're good, man. And since that's the kind of newbie dude, you see him kind of like understanding and kind of taking him under the wings, like, yeah, party, we'll get there and we'll talk to him. No problems, man. Just like, interesting, Shanks, interesting. I need more of you at some point, man. Well, granted, I do like the Straw Hats as well, but like Shanks is an interesting character to me, and I'm like, I want to know more, damn it. We also get the world government. We get like these admirals, so it seems like that there's, I don't know if there's an equal number of like Marine admirals versus like not the admirals, the pirates or the warlords. I'm sorry, I'm getting all kind of messed up. But they are trying to figure out who to kind of like replace for Crocodile as a warlord, and we see like some of the other warlords popping up. It's like, okay, it's interesting kind of effective introductions and teasing, so it's like, we'll have to see how this goes. But we see that this other dude is sent as Blackbeard because they're trying to figure out how to replace Crocodile and what to do with Luffy, and it looks like Blackbeard's kind of trying to take the angle of handling Luffy to secure the warlord position that is vacant by Crocodile being arrested. So it's like, interesting. Well, our people, the Straw Hats, get to Jaya, and it's at Mocktown, and we see that everything's kind of going kind of nutty. This is granted, it's kind of like a raucous kind of pirate town, but people are just kind of dicks and assholes. It's like, what the fuck? Especially this Bellamy dude. Oh my god, he is an asshole, and he's an effective foil of Luffy. Now, granted, the thing is, there are some similarities in that Luffy doesn't exactly always think about what he does, but in this was an effective kind of thing of him having to kind of deal with this situation and show what he's learned. However, when we get to Sky Island, he doesn't really think as much as he does in this kind of part. And we see them gathering intel, we see them meet this one dude who we will learn later is Blackbeard, but it's interesting seeing that they kind of have the same kind of views and romanticism of pirates, even though it seems that they're going to be heading for a kind of a clash later on. So we see that Bellamy is just like interested in being a pirate, taking gold, fucking over people. It's not about being like the strongest on the sea or anything like that. It's taking what you can and just doing nasty pirate shit. And the thing is, they're also trying to find stuff about Sky Island. Nami asks about it, and everybody's laughing at her and them. And Bellamy pretty much beats the shit out of Zoro and Luffy. And it's really interesting because I understand why they didn't do it, because it's trying to echo Shanks's thing that we'd seen in the introduction when that pirate poured beer on him. This, at least in my view, was different enough in that this dude is just going to beat the fucking shit out of you, and self-defense and preservation of being like at least stopping him. It's like, you don't have to fight him, but these two can stop him as he's like beating them up, and they say that they didn't have any cause to fight, and Nami's still trying to figure it out. I get it through their logic, I just don't agree with it. It's like, you didn't have to like lay a complete and utter smackdown on him and use violence to show that your way is better or anything like that. But this motherfucker is literally doing that, so you can like stop him and be like, no man, alright. But eventually Luffy does have to cross hairs with him. And they get the information that they have to talk to Mont Blanc Cricket to kind of figure out what's going on. And we get the whole kind of the whole legend of Mont Blanc Nolan, also known as Nolan the Liar. He had pretty much gone into the Grand Line, said that he found this city of gold, and that it disappeared, and he tried to take the king there with the soldiers and everything, because you tell one dude that you found a city of gold, it's like, I want all that gold! And Nolan just wanted to go, well, we learn later that Nolan wanted to just go back and see his friends. So, they get there, it's gone, and the king is so displeased that he publicly executes Nolan and tries to pretty much screw him over there. We are introduced to Cricket as he's kind of like sick because he's got diving sickness because he keeps diving, and he thinks that the City of Gold went into the bottom of the sea, and that Luffy also had to fight another monkey brother dude who they are together with Cricket as they are pretty much diving and trying to find stuff from the City of Gold. However, as this is going on and it's talking about going up to a Sky Island, even before we kind of got there and got the whole kind of reveal of, hey, maybe this city's up in the sky, since he's only finding bits and pieces of kind of gold stuff on the ocean floor. So he's like, alright, listen, if you want to try and get to Sky Island, you got to ride this knock-up stream. And the thing is, it happens, they're able to figure out that it's going to be going south, so they kind of got to get this south bird. And they go off, they have their funny little kind of thing going on to get it. They eventually get one, but not before Bellamy pretty much goes, hears about the gold that Cricket has, and beats the shit out of him and the brothers, and takes the gold. This severely pisses off Luffy, and he goes to get the gold back. And this is one of the most effective ones to show how far Luffy has grown, and also his thinking, and how he kind of reels out with this. Because at first, they're talking about Luffy just having a $30 million berry bounty on his ass, and Bellamy's like, I got a 55 million, They don't know that he's like 100 million berries now, and Zoro is 60, and he's like, give back the gold. And we see that this dude's got pretty much spring legs, double fruit powers, and he's just going around and everything. And the greatest kind of growth that I'd seen for Luffy, at least with this part, is that he doesn't go nuts. He's not angry to the point where he's just doing his usual kind of stuff. He waits for this motherfucker to like try and crack his ass, and then lays him out in one punch, knocks him completely out. And then we'd seen that this dude had talked about like their berry bounty and everything like that. Knocks his ass out, gets the gold back, and then there's one dude's like, where are you going? Up there. And then he gets back before the time and gets the gold back for him, and Cricket's like, thank you. And pretty much they fixed up their ship, put it so that way it could fly and everything like that, and they go and they go for the knock-up stream, which is interesting that it has an event where it would just blast your ass up into the sky. But it was really effective to showcase the differences between them and their whole view on piracy and their dreams. Like, sometimes you're not going to be able to get through to somebody with a kind of argument because he views piracy different than Luffy. However, when push came to shove, Luffy did not waste words or waste actions. He could have just bloodily beaten Bellamy, but he didn't. He is not vindictive. He is not sadistic. He does not inflict pain for the sake of pain. He knew how much he needed to expend to take Bellamy out, and he fucking did it. He achieved his objective, and he went there. And the thing is, they were also on a kind of tighter time schedule because they didn't want to stay on Jaya too long and have the log pose reset. So they get there, they get on the knock-up stream, and it's like crazy as shit. I'm usually like to have logical kind of explanations, but this was just kind of crazy. It's like, yeah, we got this fucking island in the sky, but they give enough of an explanation of like how this shit works out. Because we learn eventually that, like, we got this island that was pretty much pushed up in the knock-up stream, and half of it's pretty much gone. It's like, holy shit, and then they're able to, like, line up the old map with what is up in Skypiea, but they get up to the White Sea, and the clouds act like the ocean. It's like, yeah, I haven't seen anything like that before, but it's not impossible that, like, certain kind of places in the universe or whatnot could do this kind of crazy ass shit. I mean, Usopp pretty much fell through and almost went back to the Blue Sea. It's like, shit. So then we see this crazy ass motherfucker with a fucking mask and a bazooka going around being like, I'ma kick some ass! But then we got this night motherfucker with this, oh god, this bird Pierre that ate the, I think it's a bird that ate the horse fruit. And not a horse that ate the bird fruit. Yeah, it's a bird that ate the horse fruit. It, like, does a Pegasus thing. So everybody's like, what the fuck am I looking at? And he's like, normally you have to pay for this shit, but here's this kind of whistle. If you need my help, blow it. It's like, alright. So they pretty much putter around. They have to deal with some certain kind of stuff. Luffy's like, almost like, hey, let's get this to get to Sky Island. It was like, no. You need to save that shit. And they kind of nail it to the mast of the Going Merry, which is kind of fucked up, but not too much. And they get to pretty much this gate, and this old lady's like, hey, do you have, like, these couple billions of X-Tolls? It's like, what? Alright, and they go up. This introduces the whole kind of scenario that they get kind of in trouble with the local authorities because they didn't pay, and then here's, like, like, she didn't even say the conversion rate of berries, because then we get into the whole thing, it's like, you own like 70 billion? It's like a certain amount for like each individual, but it's like 7 million berries or whatnot. And Nami's like pissed off at that one point. But they get up there, they're like celebrating everything. We get introduced to Conus and her father, and they're just like, yeah, just watch out and everything. But we see this whole Wave Runner thing, and we've got dial kind of technology, which are kind of weird shell kind of things that certain ones can let out fire, certain ones air, mimic voices, do all this different kind of stuff. It definitely is helpful because towards the end of the season, it does at least introduce certain kind of things that at least Usopp, it kind of gives him and Nami more of a kind of technological kind of edge in their kind of fighting style, so getting them more kind of on par, because we get some crazy ass and shit that kind of happens on this one. So Nami's kind of fucking around with a Wave Runner before Chorus is like, I hope she doesn't go to the upper yard, because the consequence for going to the upper yard is death. It's like, you didn't think if something was that kind of fucking close, you'd want to tell somebody, hey, don't go there, because you will either die because of the thing, or you will die because of laws and customs that we have here. I mean, granted, I understand that if I'm like somewhere, it's like, hey, don't go into the Forbidden Forest, like Harry Potter. But if like somebody's new to the area, it's like, oh, what? Look, granted, the Forbidden Forest looks kind of dark and foreboding. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go check that shit out. It's like, I'd ask about that shit first. However, this is like close enough. It's like, what the fuck's up with that shit? don't go. And then she sees things going nutty, people like attacking this one dude's like, I don't know what's going on. And then she tries to get back, and then of course we get the white berets, which are kind of nutty, and they're talking about the whole kind of fine, and they're pretty much trying to figure out how to kind of like get off the ship, but Conus had pretty much ratted him out and has this kind of shrimp thing take the Going Merry, which has Nico, Nami, Chopper, and Zoro to this sacrificial thing, and Conus is pretty much leading them to go through this kind of trial thing with like the high priest, and she apologizes, tells him all that because Luffy could sense that she was shaking and she was scared and everything, and she comes clean. It's like, yay! I mean, you were kind of trying to fuck him over, but you in the end chose to do what was right, and then almost was immediately like fucking smote. Like, Luffy gets her out of the way, but we got like a smote ray from like God Eneru. And it's like, what the fuck? This dude can go get fucked. It is really, really weird. And on a definite kind of arrogance level that you name your leader God. And it's just like, what the fuck? And evidently this dude's only been there for 6 years, and we learned that the Sky Knight, Gonfall, and if, granted, since I've been watching the kind of dub, I do know that names are kind of different, so it's really kind of weird. I understand that it's kind of nutty, but like, he used to be God. He does help out Conus and her father and about pumpkins. We actually do get a kind of connection with the kind of pumpkins as well, because Nolan evidently introduced them to the island. Let's actually kind of get that out of the way as well, because towards the end of the season we get this whole kind of mini 3-episode thing where we see Nolan, who's awesome, and Kalgara, who is like an important figure in the Shandoran mythology, because the island of Jai was home to the Shandorans, and they had the City of Gold, and they were protecting it and everything and doing their kind of shit. Nolan kind of pops up, and they're always trying to drive people out, but there's this tree sickness going on, killing the people. Nolan pops up and is like, and they're trying to do a human sacrifice, and Nolan is horrified by this, and I'm definitely with Nolan. Any god that demands this, like a human sacrifice or anything, fuck that noise. Even with your, like, that isn't, like, has that helped? Like, they were offering it to a god thing, but they pretty much, Nolan kills the snake thing. It's like, yeah, if that's your god, alright. He's not, like, arrogant about it. He's like, this is fucked up. And then he's like, listen, don't kill me and my crew. Give us until sundown tomorrow. Like, give us some time. I can figure out what's kind of going on and try and help you people with, like, science and medicine and shit, because he's a botanist. So he goes out, he's able to find the thing. He's kind of trapped, but he's able to get up. And they had cured one of the people, and then they start curing the rest of them. And they're all partying, and everything's kind of working out. And he shows him the City of Gold with the poneglyph and everything, and this bell. And that's important because it kind of signifies important things and like guides the ancestors of the Shandorans back, and then they actually live in these trees. However, that becomes an important thing later on. Kalgara also kills another giant snake, and they get another little snake, which we learn later on, 400 years later, is this other big snake that's kind of working around. I'm sorry that I'm going out of order with this, but I think it's important to kind of get this going on. And then at a certain point, the island inhabitants turn off on them and are pissed off and pretty much tries to get them to leave. But we learn that one of the, the daughter of Kalgara goes and talks with pretty much the doctor, and we learn that the tree disease is kind of a systematic kind of disease, i.e., in an ecosystem, it can go from trees to people to back to trees and all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, they found this group of trees that they had to cut down. However, these trees were important in their mythology in that their ancestors' spirits, after being wrought by the bell, were supposed to inhabit those trees. However, those trees were all dead, and they had to be cleared out. And they were pissed off because they didn't know this. And they eventually get that as they're kind of leaving. But Kalgara says, crying that he wants his friend to come back and that he will ring the bell for him to know. And Nolan cries as well. And it's like, damn, they have a kind of good friendship. Even though they had miscommunications and everything, they were able to reach each other. And that's the kind of sad thing that goes on with them. They don't get back. When he comes back, Shandor is in the sky, and that's the whole thing of them trying to be staying with ringing the bell, because he's Kalgara's only kind of thought is that he needs to ring the bell to tell Nolan where he's at, and he kind of dies with that. But then we see that the Shandorans were pretty much treated horribly by the people in the sky, because that popped up, and they don't have Earth, what they call Verth, up there. So they're like, fuck this shit, we kind of want this and need this, and pretty much set off this kind of whole kind of thing, similar to like kicking the natives off of a land and putting them, well, they didn't even really put them in a reservation. They're kind of hiding around this giant beanstalk, giant jack, underneath certain kind of places. It's like, shit. So this is not good. They've been pretty much trying to fight to take on the Skypeans to get their homeland back. But Wiper is pretty much a little bit too dogmatic in what he's kind of doing, even though he evens out towards the end. Alright, so we see that, sadly, the two friends were never able to meet again, but that then links back up with everything that's going on, because they start learning more about this island. They get the reveal, because Nami and Zoro and Nico are able to kind of find that, as Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp are pretty much going through these trials, because the Going Merry is put on this sacrificial altar thing, and there's like these shark things going on. So Chopper stays back behind, and they're kind of going off. Chopper is trying to protect the Merry, but one of the Shura, one of the high priests, Shura, pops up and is pretty much like setting the thing on fire. He blows the whistle, and Gonfall kind of helps out. They both kind of get fucked up and are kind of like sinking, but like these giant fucking South birds kind of pop up and bring them up and kind of save them. We get the reveal kind of thing, and they're like, hey, the City of Gold's up here, man. Let's try and figure out what's going on. Enaru's doing his thing and pretty much instigating everything going on. And we get this Shandorans popping up. He sends his people out. And we get this kind of mini Battle Royale, almost tournament kind of thing going on as they're fighting out. I mean, granted, Luffy and Sanji and Usopp have to deal with, like, Satori, which was an interesting one because it's the ordeal of spheres. And granted, out of all the kind of picks, I get picking that one. And it's just this asshole dude who's got this mantra thing and can, like, predict movements and these powers, and it's like, they get pretty fucked up, but then they're eventually able to kind of, like, crack his ass out. And Usopp unveils this kind of, like, belt that he uses throughout most of the rest of the season to kind of, like, get around. And they kind of get out of there, and we see that Konis and her father trying to, like, link back up with them. Now, granted, they're kind of like, it's almost like, hey, they'll get there eventually kind of shit. Yeah, they get out there. We see the Shandorans pretty much popping up and, like, doing their whole kind of assault. We see everything else kind of going in. And there's like, yeah, one of the priests got it. So, priest, go throughout the rest of the upper yard, do your shit. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm doing my shit. I'll do what I need to. And he's like, yeah, there's, like, 81 people. There'll only be 5 survivors after, like, 3 hours or whatnot. And then we kind of get the weird kind of middle ground of this season, because I really like the beginning, and this isn't horrendous, but, and I can't believe I'm kind of saying this, I almost wanted them to lengthen out certain fights, not by much, like actually devote a full episode to, like, Zoro fighting one of the Shandoran kind of dudes and learning kind of more of his techniques, Nico fighting one of this Yama dude who's destroying important, like, architectural works and everything. I'm like, yeah, Nico, I'm on your side on this. Chopper getting his kind of cool bit and kind of figuring out what to do and helping kind of try and hunt for the City of Gold, because Luffy and the rest of them kind of link back up with them at the altar. They kind of party with some wolves and everything, kind of get some more kind of lowdown and information from Gonfall before they set out to get the City of Gold and figure out where it's at. Which Luffy, Nico, Zoro, and Chopper kind of go off, and Nico's the only one that pretty much gets anywhere kind of close, and the gold's kind of all gone at that point. Zoro's got completely and utterly horrible fucking directions. Luffy runs into Wiper, but then accidentally, like, the thing is, he's like, oh, this is a weird cave, but you're like, he got eaten by that snake. And I was just sitting there like, alright. He's in that snake for kind of too long. Like, there's a lot of kind of wheel spinning in this, which I think could have been done better. Not that it really affected my enjoyment too much. Which is kind of weird because there's wheel spinning, but I don't think it takes as many episodes as certain kind of other ones, if that makes sense. Whereas I'm almost like, I wish that there was a, like, one episode or two devoted to like a back and forth between Zoro and the Shandoran dude, Nico and the other Yama guy, as everybody's kind of like fighting each other. We're seeing how battles in the sky kind of take place with dials and everything like that. We get this like kind of impact dial, and then understanding of this reject dial, these burn bazookas and shit like that. It's like, whoa, shit. As we see that Eneru starts getting on the field and taking people out, even though they're not dead, because we're first said that they're dead, but he like fucking electrocutes a lot of people, and they're all pretty much okay. I'm not really complaining that the people are okay. I'm fine with that. If you can get by with like pretty much just knocking people out or whatnot, I'd rather go for that. I mean, just don't be like, they're all dead and then they're all alive, even though I kind of prefer being like, alright, they're all alive, cool. Because just wanton death and destruction just doesn't really jive with me. The deaths have to be impactful. So, we pretty much see people pretty much knock the fuck out. Eneru is pretty much like thunderclapping other people's asses and shit. Kamaki? We see this one girl pretty much trying to do Warren Wiper eventually. We see Chopper getting some cool kind of character development, taking out one of the High Priests, but then pretty much getting fucked over by another one. And I'm like, damn it, and he gets knocked out for a while. Sanji and Usopp were pretty much on the going merry, pretty much trying to get it to, with Nami and Gonfall, to this kind of rendezvous point, so that way if they got the gold and everybody got there, they'd bug the fuck out. But Eneru pops up and fucking lays them out for a while. And then Satori's brothers pop up and like Gonfall and Nami beat the shit out of them. And I can't tell if that's a thing in my eye or a bug. But if it is, fuck it. So, a lot of crazy ass shit's going around. So you see people beating other people's asses, some people getting knocked out and back up, some people knocked out for a lot of fucking episodes, so you're like, alright, you're then at that point kind of like keeping track of where the body is at this point, and where they can kind of be found. The snake pretty much becomes one of the things, and like this one, has his dog pretty much in play because it can box. Conus and them eventually link up and pretty much take care of him, as we see this Isa, little girl of the Shandorans, is trying to figure out what to do. Nami tries to help her out. They get kind of chased in the forest by the snake, because it was pretty much at the edge of the fucking island drinking, and we see that Conus has to like figure out what's kind of going on, as we learn that Eneru's plan is to like destroy Sky Island and Angel Island and everything, and almost gets like the dude and the father pretty much look like they get smoked, but we learn that they're okay at the end, which I'm fine with. Let me see. Shura, I think it's Wiper takes out one of them. The Shura dude with his reject dial, which is amped up in power from the impact, but it severely recoils back on the owner. Shandian warrior. Shandians. Kedetsu. Yes. Like, Chopper gets fucked up by him, but Zoro kind of pops up there because they keep kind of climbing this whole kind of thing to get to like Eneru's kind of place and kind of learn where other kind of stuff is, where Nico kind of goes underneath, learns stuff, sees a poneglyph, trying to figure out what's going on, tries to find the gold bell and the belfry, and that's of course where we start learning stuff later on in our level 3 episode thing. And Eneru's like, ooh, I kind of need that, and we find out that he is trying to find a land of endless Earth, and it's like, alright, and he actually took all the gold from the city and built a giant ship out of it. But we see this kind of like cage match go on. Zoro takes out Ohm, which is kind of cool to see him kind of like reconfigure one thing that he had learned to use his sword attack from a distance, and kind of augment it to take out this asshole who pretty much had a blade that was made of Ironclad and could like extend and go to like various different kind of other places. It's what really fucked over Chopper. Trying to line stuff up while he knocks that out. Nami and Isa got eaten, and Gonfall got eaten by the snake. So they're in there. They finally figure out Luffy's in there. It's like, yeah, there's gold in here too, but can we get out of here? They almost Nami and Gonfall get out, as well as Pierre, but then Gonfall sends Pierre back in because Luffy and Isa are left in there. They get out eventually, but not before everybody's pretty much fucked up by Eneru, Zoro, Wiper, Nico, and Gonfall, and Nami's scared and is pretty much taken by Eneru. She's like, I'll follow you, and he lays out his whole plan. He's going to fly to a land of endless birth. It's like, alright, but where is it? And I am interested more in, like, he just sees himself as a god and he can destroy and do all these kind of things. They do build him up as an effective villain. I do want to see kind of, because he is defeated, but he's still in play. And it's kind of interesting because he is perfectly matched up with Luffy because he's a rubber man and it's resistant to electricity. And Luffy gets out, sees everything's pissed off. He's like, where is he? And Ice is able to lead him there with her mantra, and he pops up, and we see. It's funny because they built him up so effectively where he's like this badass, and like you're thinking, okay, he's definitely going to be one that is going to be hard to kind of fuck with. And Luffy just fucking cracks his ass. He's like, he never really had to take a fight seriously because of his electric powers. And we learned that he is from another kind of sky place that he had destroyed as well, and then came here. It's like, what the fuck? And we see him kind of detailing everything. Usopp and Sanji finally wake up and try and rescue Nami and succeed. Luffy was pretty much doing some interesting kind of thinking here too. Now granted, not great thinking, but he's learned about the mantra and does this kind of octopus thing where he's like doing hits that go across, like hitting another place and then ricocheting, and he just beats the shit out of him before he like brings out this like molten gold thing and pretty much has that on Luffy's arm for a majority of the rest of the season. It's like, alright, as Luffy then falls down with Isa, Nami gets rescued, but Sanji is like fucked over again and is just knocked down. So it's getting to the time he's pretty much using his powers. He pretty much starts nuking Angel Island, Shandora, and it's getting kind of fucked up. A lot of people are getting injured and hurt, but we see a lot of people kind of like evacuating and trying to get out, and then just seeing them just so despondent at the devastation, which I get. It's like, this is fucked up. But then we see Luffy trying everything that they can to figure out how to stop this. He's going up to get to the Golden Bell, but we learn that Luffy's like, I'm going to ring that bell for that old timer. And that lines up with Wiper wanting to ring the bell for the Descendant. Once he learned that it's Mont Blanc, he's like, alright, we'll help him. And now he gets the idea to pretty much crack Giant Jack and have it like lean to the west, so that way they can get up to the bell. And it's really kind of effective because the fight kind of weakened Eneru, but then he starts doing all this other kind of stuff, and he's trying to do this super like ball kind of thing to like to destroy the island. And I love how Luffy just throws himself in there and actually utilizes the gold sphere on his arm to destroy the attack. It's like, there you go, man. You just have to think. And then he's pretty much kind of injured by Eneru, and he's like, yeah, if you can either punch my ass out or pretty much get impaled and die. But he's able to like get himself off, make like pretty much a golden rifle kind of gum shot, and it just cracks his ass and like takes him out, and he rings the bell, and Cricket's able to hear it, and he's like, wow, it was in the sky this whole time. That's nuts. And then he's like, alright boys, what's the next stream to go to? And because the other brothers were like, ah, shit, what are we gonna do now? And he's like, alright, what's the next stream? I'm like, yes, that's great, you achieved it. And it was just great to see Luffy be able to do that. It's like a good cheer moment of like, yeah! It effectively got there. I mean, granted, it might have been a little bit drawn out, but I was okay with it because the payoff and the execution was great, because it wasn't an easy win with Luffy. Alright? Because we do see Eneru then kind of leave and be like, I'm still going to search for this thing. People are able to get the Golden Bell back up. We see everybody kind of like celebrating and all that. And Chopper helping Wiper and everything. Wiper trying to figure out what's going on, but like Gonfall and the elder of the Shandorans, is like, yeah, we have bad blood, but they all have to live on the island together now. It doesn't belong to any one person. It belongs to all of us. And they're partying and everything. We even see the snake getting into it and everything. And it's really kind of cool to see that kind of stuff. And not granted, they do kind of copy certain kind of like celebration stuff, but I get it. Like, you might have spent all of your kind of like animation stuff on the other stuff. You copy what you kind of have to. I don't like it, but I can understand it. And then we get to the part that is just so kind of like, it hurts my head, but it definitely works to Luffy and the rest of the crew's lack of thinking on certain kind of things. Because Luffy's like, let's go to steal some gold. I'm like, you saved these people from a delusion of grandeur, megalomaniac, psychopathic asshole that was going to nuke and kill them all with fucking lightning. Why do you need to steal gold from them? And it's funny because we then go and see they're able to get the Golden Bell and Belfry back up. She's able to see the poneglyph, and that it's like, that's kind of interesting. That learning that the Shandorians have pretty much fulfilled everything that they've done, and they don't need to do anything more with it. It's like, yay, that's cool. But then learning that Gold Roger was there, and he left a note written in the poneglyph language, and that all of the poneglyphs come together to create a message about that like lost century that Nico Robbins has been wanting to search for and everything. It's like, oh shit. And that Gonfall remembers gold, and Gold D. Roger, and then she of course talks about how Monkey D. Luffy, he has the same D initial and everything. It's like, okay. It's like, let's see what's going on. And that like gets Nico back into kind of the groove. It's like, all right. I like how it's kind of setting that kind of stuff up. It's like, let's see what goes on with this. How it's connected to the One Piece. What's kind of going on. This even talking about another kind of super weapon named after Poseidon. So we'll see how that kind of works out and how that kind of fits in. And we find out that they're like, yeah, we can't give you the bell, but I mean, there's a broken support thing. That is the biggest fucking thing ever. And it's like, that's a lot of gold. And then here comes where the stupid thing is. Luffy just brings him into a sleeping snake and starts taking gold out of there. And he's like, Robin, we have to leave. And I love how Robin doesn't tell him. It's like, you don't have to steal gold. They're giving you a giant thing. It's like, what the fuck's going on with these guys? We just want to thank them. And my thing is, these people wanted to properly thank them. And I can get being like, I'm kind of leery on that, or iffy. I just kind of want to go and scoot and do my own thing. But sometimes you have to let people thank you on certain kind of things, so that way they don't feel that it feels like everything's kind of worked out. But they're like, we'll keep ringing the bell, so that way you can come back and everything. And then Isa also kind of wants to be like Luffy, and we see that inspiration. We see Gold D. Roger had inspired Luffy, and Shanks had inspired Luffy, and he goes on and he does these kind of acts and deeds from their inspirations, and that further inspires other people to do greater things and to be better and to be their best selves. And I'm like, that's my shit. Alright? I love that shit. It's just, I think it's kind of stupid. It's like, why do you save these people? They'd probably be like, yeah, if you want to go inside that snake and take that gold, sure. I mean, it's more transportable than a big fucking thing that you mistook for a cannon. And Usopp he's like, yeah, Giant Jack was taken down, he says, by his rubber bands, but it was Wiper and Zoro pretty much cutting that shit. And he traded rubber bands for those dials, which hopefully will, like, help out. We do see some at the end of this season as well, as they then run off and fly off with Conus and her father, and they get to Clyde's End, and I love it. Conus is like, well, watch out for the free fall, hold on to something. As they then, like, fall off, she calls this, like, octopus balloon, grabs them. They're also talking about, like, how to split up the treasure and everything like that, but or, like, what to spend it on. But she's like, listen, we gotta get down to the Blue Sea before we even, like, do that shit. They're just kind of chilling out. Luffy then, for some stupid fucking reason, decides to jump on the fucking balloon octopus, as we then see that they are falling faster, and the octopus is losing air, and then Luffy almost gets sucked into the damn octopus, and then him and Sanji almost roll off, and Usopp's like, alright, I got this, and then he uses some air dials to pretty much try and like slow their descent before the octopus is like, yeah, I'm done, and then they crash down. But we see that they land. Like, all right, where are we landed? And then we see all this kind of stuff going on, all these spotlights and what look like Marines. It's like, what the fuck? That is a pretty inconvenient place to like just land and end. But I'm like, all right, can't wait to see what happens next on One Piece. I was like, yeah. So I'm enjoying watching One Piece. I like to see where their adventures go. This was a pretty good arc that I liked, even though there's parts in the middle that I wish could have delved into more kind of stuff of the actual kind of fighting, because it does jump around a lot of showing, like, I understand showing the rest of the people fighting, like the Divine Warriors and the Shandorans, but I felt it kind of took away, like, you could have, like, skimmed that even more, been like, just have them in the background or kind of weird noises, and focused more on the actual fights, and showcasing stuff like that going on, like the big ones of like character stuff of like Zoro developing new techniques, Chopper trying to feel like he's more valuable to the crew by doing these kind of stuff, fighting these kind of people and trying to find the city of gold, Nico and understanding the historical importance of these ruins, and this asshole just fucking breaking them and just being like, I ain't about that shit, brah, and just cracking ass. But the Luffy kind of fight was definitely pretty good, even though we essentially take a giant fucking break as we're trying to like get to the point where he like gets to his ass. Like, I didn't have a problem with the length of it, but I can understand someone being like, it took a while for him to like fucking deal with that gold sphere on his arm, because that pretty much broke off after he like thundercracked the fucking bell. But I liked it. I liked seeing the kind of character development of Luffy and him not being at the kind of big league levels as the warlords yet, but seeing it being built and in that kind of like in that kind of part of his journey where he's building up to that and going through that and getting better and learning how to be a better captain, even though you see a lot of parts where he's like, I just want meat, I don't know what's going on, let's do this fun thing, and it usually gets them into like even more trouble or again more adventures. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this one, and I was glad that I saw it, and I can't wait to see what other shenanigans and shit the rest of them get into. So those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.